Good morning from WKYT News. I'm Bill Bryant, and we welcome you to Kentucky Newsmakers. Hope you're enjoying your weekend. Later, a man who is celebrating 50 years as a financial advisor who has seen the landscape change dramatically when it comes to investments. Jack Russell of Russell Capital Management will be joining us a little later. But first, now that we're past Labor Day, it's truly election season here in Kentucky. Oh, you may not have noticed all those ads. The two major parties are waging battles over high-stakes offices around the Commonwealth. Democrats hope to win back some of the seats that they lost in the state legislature when the Republicans captured a supermajority in both chambers in 2016. They're hoping to keep teachers energized in that effort. Republicans are defending the 6th District congressional seat in central Kentucky, where incumbent Andy Barr is facing a hard-charging challenge from retired fighter pilot Amy McGrath. That race is a mix of national and local issues, and money and ads are flying in from everywhere. There are local races for control of county governments, a couple of high-profile mayor's races that are actually partisan as well, and a lot more that leads up to Kentucky's statewide elections, which are next year. So it's a very busy time in politics, and joining us for a little give and take this morning are the Kentucky Republican Party spokesman Trey Watson and Democratic State Senator Reggie Thomas of Lexington, who, by the way, was in the race for Congress earlier this year. Gentlemen, welcome. Thanks for coming.
Bill, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
As the ancient saying goes, may we live in interesting times.
That's
and
right.
we do, right?
That's right.
What do we want to argue about? Let's start with the state legislature. Mr. Watson, the Republicans control everything in the General Assembly at this point, and the GOP overrode some of the governor's vetoes on some matters, and then they worked together on a pension bill and got that through, and is now tied up in court. How do the races stack up? Do you maintain that supermajority?
I think we have a great shot to maintain the supermajority. Remember, this isn't just about 1 year of a legislative cycle. It's about 2 years. And we did a lot of great work in 2017. There was a lot of stuff that was low-hanging fruit that the Democrats just blocked up for purely political purposes that even had majority Democrat support in a lot of cases. And those results you saw 2017 and now in 2018, huge booms in economic development investment, jobs created. You really see our economy skyrocketing. Unemployment's at an all-time low. Wage growth is starting to go up. Workforce participation is rising. So I think that's great. In 2018, everybody knows it was a little bit of a bumpier session, but that's because we had to dig into doing the hard work. And when there's not even agreement necessarily within your own party, but we all agreed that it was important enough to do, and we had to get it done. However, I think when people go to vote on election day, they're going to look at themselves now, look at themselves 2 years ago, and say, "Am I better off now than I was?" And I think the majority of Kentuckians can say yes.
Senator Thomas, I would take it that you and the Democrats have a different perspective.
Well, we have a realistic perspective. I know Trey's from Kentucky, but I don't think he's really traveled the state much this summer or beginning this fall. I mean, tell the people in Eastern Kentucky that life is better for them, that workforce participation is up. When you go down there and see the despair and people still looking for work and people out of work, there's no sense anywhere in Eastern Kentucky that this state is booming. The same would be true in Western Kentucky. Go down to the river counties. Go down to my home area, the Henderson, Union County, Crittenden County areas. There is still much to be done in this state in terms of getting people jobs and bringing this economy up. Probably the people that Trey hang out with, I'm sure that they're doing quite well. But for the bulk of Eastern Kentuckians and Kentuckians all over the state, the answer would be no. And to your initial point, the Republicans will not only lose their supermajority in the House, this 2018 cycle bill, but there's a good chance that they're also going to lose that supermajority in the Senate as well. We've got some excellent Senate candidates that are doing well across this state, and so I think there's real concern that they're really trying to hide from the public about, just how many seats they're going to lose in the state legislative cycle.
First of all, there's zero chance that we lose the supermajority in the Senate. In fact, I think we're going to win the seat out in West Kentucky with Robbie Mills over Dorsey Ridley. I don't see any seats that we lose. I think we gain one in the Senate. In the House, I think our great advantage in the House races is geography. You have 11 Democrats who decided they don't like being in the minority and have retired. And 7 of those are outside of Fayette and Jefferson County. And we're going to be extremely competitive in all 7 of those races. We have great candidates, and I think we're going to win a majority of those 7 races. And for every open Democrat seat that we win, that's 2 that they've got to win to cut into our supermajority. So I think it's going to be just on a pure geographical and numbers basis. It's going to be hard to knock down that supermajority.
Trey, you and I both know that Dorsey's going to win that seat very easily.
I don't think so.
That Mills has not been campaigning in any of that 7-county district. It's a 7-county district, as you well know. Mills has not been campaigning, doesn't have any signs of visible support there. And my dear friend, Dorsey Ridley, has been out campaigning and knocking on doors and has the support of a wide variety of constituent groups, not just labor, teachers.
How much of a factor will teachers be in this race? Is it important to you, in order for this perfect storm to occur that you're referring to, where you think that this could happen, that the Democrats could win back a lot of seats? At the same time, do the Republicans, do you fear an energized teacher base?
Oh, the teacher base is going to be huge. When the teachers mentioned back in March, Bill, that we're going to remember in November, they've not forgotten that. And I'm sure as you've been traveling around here in Central Kentucky, you keep seeing those Kentucky 120 signs popping up, those Remember November signs popping up, and not just here in Central Kentucky, but I said I've been traveling the state, and they are everywhere. Teachers are energized, they're determined, and these Republicans are going to feel it at the polls very strongly in just a couple of months.
Teachers a major factor in this campaign?
I think that there's an enthusiasm issue. With teachers are very excited to get out and vote, but I think at the end of the day, you're talking about a small portion of the population. And what's going to really be important here is what's the campaign contested on. And I think a lot of our candidates, we have very good candidates who have worked hard not only to get into office, but since getting into office, and have built up strong personal brands there in the local areas. And I think a lot of the voters understand that this is not about some sort of larger referendum. It's about a report card for a guy like John Blanton or somebody like Melinda Prunty. And I think that they're going to be okay because the election's about them and not about these broader issues.
Talk to us a little bit about the longtime State Representative Jody Richards down in Bowling Green, the former House Speaker. He has been there since 1976 and has finally decided that he's had enough of Frankfort and is retiring from that position. But there is a robust race to succeed him there.
Right.
Is that one that is in play that potentially Republicans hope to win and Democrats hope to hold?
Absolutely. You know, I think Jody Richards was able to hold that seat as long as he did because he fits the district well. He was a moderate Democrat. He sided with us on many issues. And the 2 candidates running, we have Ben Lawson, who's more of a centrist, center-right Republican, and you have Patty Minter, who is a far-left extremist. She just doesn't fit the district. Ben Lawson fits the district much better. Much kind of in the same mold as Jody, and I think Ben has a great chance at winning that race.
Well, Patty Minter is from that area. She grew up there. People know her.
So is Ben.
To call her an extremist it's really kind of insulting.
Well, you should read reviews on things.
And
public statements, actions she's made.
And if I may finish, Bill, please. And she's got the Warren County Democratic Party solidly behind her. I've been down there to Bowling Green, so I know what I'm talking about. And her chances of winning that are probably better than 50-50 of holding that seat for the Democrats. He talks about Melinda Gibbons Prunty again. I just came back from Muhlenberg County this week. I was in there, and I was really amazed how going down to Muhlenberg County and going through Ohio County some, and just how much support I see for Brent Yance across the map there. He has really energized Democrats and teachers and labor there, and that's one seat that will definitely be a take back for us in 2018.
That race is going to be about one issue and one issue only. Brent Yance said, "It is nobody's business what's in my pension." Melinda Gibbons-Prunty voted to make pensions for legislators transparent. Brent Yance, 6 budgets, voted to underfund the pension system by $3.34 billion. Melinda Prunty's only voted for 1 budget. She underfunded the pension systems by 0. That race is going to be entirely decided on Brent Yance's mismanagement and public statements about pensions.
And Trey, you and I know, so we've been following that race, that ever since Melinda Prunty voted on that March 29th for that pension bill and that budget bill, she's been running from it ever since. She's gone down and told the people down there in Greenville and Drakesboro and Beaverdale several times, well, I didn't know what I was voting for. I really didn't do that. You know, I really didn't understand why I was voting for this. She's been running away from that, but you know what? There's an I behind her name, and that she cannot run from.
All right. So, something I know that Mr. Watson, you were dealing with as we went to tape of this on Friday. Everett Corley appeared. He is a candidate for state representative in Jefferson County and appeared apparently on a white nationalist YouTube program in 2014. The Republican Party has quickly distanced itself from him. Absolutely.
Everett Corley said some pretty despicable things in that program. Shouldn't have been on the program, period, based on who it's affiliated with. He's a perennial candidate who has made multiple offensive and outrageous statements in the past. His behavior in the past, I believe at one point he was involved in a lawsuit with the Jefferson County GOP. He's someone we've never helped in the past. We certainly will not help in the future, and he does not represent the views of the party or any of our leadership.
This happens from time to time with nominees that are embarrassing to the parties to some extent, right? Is that your stance? And it happens in both sides?
Well, Bill, I don't recall it happening recently on the Democratic side. I accept Trey at his word, and the Republican Party of Kentucky, you know, when they say they distance themselves from that. I accept that. I believe that. What I just find so interesting is that we see this play out every election cycle in the Republican Party. You know, we've seen it played out in Bullitt County. Now we see it play out in Jefferson County. Every election cycle, it seems that these Republican Party nominees, you know, say things that the Republican parties have to come. The Republican Party itself, the state Republican Party, has to come back itself and say, no, we're withdrawing from that. It's unfortunate this happens routinely within their party every election cycle.
Well, you know, when all it takes to get on the ballot for a party nominee is $500 and 2 signatures, you know, we have no control over that. Anybody can show up and file, and unfortunately, sometimes this happens.
All right, let's take a break. We're going to talk about the congressional race here in central Kentucky that everybody's talking about, it seems, not only here, but around the country as well. We'll be back in just a moment as we talk with Democrats and Republicans about this year's exciting races. We welcome you back to WKYT's Kentucky Newsmakers. We're visiting with Trey Watson, the spokesman of the Kentucky Republican Party, and with State Senator Reggie Thomas, Democrat of Lexington, and getting their perspectives on campaign 2018, which certainly is one to watch, no doubt about it. Let's talk about this race for Congress in central Kentucky. It's being watched around the country. Senator Thomas, you were in it. You ran in that primary and ran third to Amy McGrath. Is she running the kind of race that it will require to take out a three-term incumbent Republican, Andy Bauer?
I think she is. I think Amy's not given enough credit for her political savvy and her decision making. I think she's running an excellent campaign. You know, all the polling I've seen, all the people I've talked to indicate that she's up at this point over someone, as you said, who's a three-term incumbent here. And yes, I think that she's going to be one of the reasons why after 2018 we're going to see the House of Representatives switch from Republican to Democratic leadership.
Your perspective on the 6th District, Mr. Watson.
As I travel the district and talk to reporters especially and our activists on the ground, I think that the ads that Andy Barr's been running pointing out the fact that Amy McGrath tells people in the district one thing and tells her donors in places like Massachusetts something different, I think that's really starting to take a toll on her. I think it's really starting to erode away its support that she had built up with center-left moderate voters out in the rural parts of the district. And I think that at the end of the day, she's going to end up having to retreat back to Fayette County, it's going to become purely a battle of turnout. Who can get their voters out to the polls? And we have the largest field operation that the party's ever put together, not only statewide but in the 6th district. And we feel great about the door-to-door ground game battle going into Election Day. And I think that's what's going to carry us through.
What kind of a factor is President Trump in this race?
I think it's a split factor.
I think it's definitely a factor in this race. I think, as I said during the primary, I think he's the single reason that Democrats have gotten energized, gotten excited, motivated about this race. And so, yes, he's going to be a real factor, particularly on the Democratic side, in turning out folks against Andy Barr.
I think it's a split factor for both McGrath and Barr. It's going to hurt Andy in Fayette County because it's really gotten the liberals ginned up and excited to turn out and vote. But the president is still incredibly popular out in those rural counties and the outlying parts of the district. And I think that especially if the president he said he's going to come in and do an event, I think that's really going to excite and energize a base that may be a little bit, to be honest, kind of fat and happy at this point. We've got control of Congress. The good things have been happening. Regulations have dropped. Tax cuts. They like things that are going on in Frankfurt. Our base is not excited necessarily to get out and vote. I think the president coming in is going to fire that base up and really help even out some of that enthusiasm gap that we're looking at.
We haven't seen a lot of polling on this race this year, but there was one done by the New York Times at the end of the week, and they were making calls each night. And the interesting thing is it showed it close, maybe a 3 to 4 point advantage for Barr, it looks like at this point. But they try to call so many and can't get an answer. I mean, it was like maybe 8,000 calls and they got 160 responses, that kind of number. People don't want to talk to pollsters. They don't want to talk about what they might do on Election Day.
I think that's true, Bill. I don't disagree with that. People think that voting is my business. I don't need to share that with anyone. I thought it was interesting, though, Trey was saying when he goes out in the 6th Congressional District, he talks to the activists and reporters. I would just encourage Trey that while he's out there, just talk to the people. Because let me tell you what I'm hearing a lot, Bill, and I'm going to be out in Lexington a lot this weekend. People have been coming up to me, Bill, every day, sometimes 3 and 4 times a day, and say, Reggie, should I vote for McGrath? Is she someone worth voting for? And I say, absolutely, that she's the best person for you. You know, she's going to represent your interests, and she's not going to be an ally of Trump. And so when I talk to just the regular, everyday, hardworking folks, not people that are Democratic Party activists, not people who are newsmakers, but just regular folks, they are asking me all the time about Amy McGrath and their support for her, and I tell them they should do that. And I tell you, we're going to see that come Election Day when she's going to get a lot of people, not just here in Lexington, but everyday working folks, out there in Anderson County and Bourbon County, pulling that lever for her.
Well, we have opposite experiences because I do go out in the district a lot. I go out around the state a lot, and I do talk to regular working people. I've got a lot of roots in this state, both professionally and family-wise, and what I hear out across the state is things are getting better. Jobs have come back or are coming back. You can't just plop down a $1.6 billion aluminum plant overnight. That's going to take time, but there's construction jobs involved, and then the permanent jobs are going to come. People, the one number to look at that's a real indicator of this economy and why Republicans are going to do better than Senator Thomas has given us credit for is the workforce participation rate. That number is skyrocketing the state. We're well above the national average, and what that means is people are coming back in the workforce. They may not have found a job yet, but they have hope that they will.
2019 will be here before you know it, gentlemen.
We're just 4 months away from it, right? Just 4 months away.
Oh, so more discussions. Thanks for coming by. We appreciate it very much.
Bill, thank you.
All right, thank you. Thanks, guys. We appreciate it. We'll help you stay with us now on WKYT, and we're coming back in just a moment with financial advisor Jack Russell, celebrating 50 years in the business of telling you how to earn more. We're back in just a bit. Welcome back to Kentucky Newsmakers on WKYT. Our next guest is celebrating 50 years of giving people advice about their money. Jack Russell started at Hilliard & Lyons. He headed up the Lexington offices of Dean Witter Reynolds and a branch of J.C. Bradford & Company. That was before founding Russell Capital Management back in 1991. Times have changed since he started his career in 1968, and he's here to talk with us about that. And Jack Russell, welcome. We appreciate you very much coming in today.
Thank you very much. very much. I'm glad to be here.
What a milestone. Congratulations.
Oh, it is, isn't it?
I guess times have changed some since 1968.
They've changed tremendously. The way finance is done, the way stocks are purchased, the way bonds are purchased, the incredible technology that we have today over the lack of technology in 1968, but everybody was on the same playing field in 68, so we didn't know what was to come.
There were just probably a few people at that time buying stocks, right? And they had to go through somebody and make phone calls. I mean, it was
right.
Quite
it
a
was
process.
The buying of stocks was really for people that had a little more assets and had accumulated some money, and there were some profit-sharing accounts, but it was mainly individuals and big retirement accounts of like states and governments. But
yeah. How did the 401ks start to change that? Did that bring sort of a lot of everyday consumers into the market?
It eventually did. At first, the 401k market was, each plan had to be separately designed by a retirement planning attorney. Had to get the accountants involved. It had to be a separate plan just for that company. So it was starting from scratch, every single plan that was designed. So there weren't many companies that could afford to do that. As time went on, we got the ability to have plans that could be a template for other companies, and now it's very easy to open a 401k. And so when that came about, it let almost every company be involved if they wanted to.
In those early days, people were, they would pick those stocks, right? GE,
right.
Standard Oil, some of the big companies
exactly.
of the day. And then, when you get into this 401k system, then people start being in these funds and sort of decisions are being made that they didn't know so much about. How then did you have to advise people differently?
Well, as a stockbroker, you can't advise the participants on how to, what securities to buy for their 401k. You have to be a fiduciary to do that. Investment managers like our firm, we can do that because we're a fiduciary. But the most funds have a lineup of most 401ks have a lineup of mutual funds that the employees can choose from. That lineup is determined by the trustees. And so I think an awful lot, well, from my experience, an awful lot of people who are participants in 401k plans really are not able to understand the difference between the investments. So they just pick something like a fund that you're retiring this year. And,
right, but maybe that sounds good, but what about, risk tolerance? It's different for, some people want to be sure that they preserve the capital that they have in. There are others that, they want to roll the dice. And so I guess that you're having to tailor those each time, right? Right,
well, the 401ks, we handled a few 401ks, but not many. Most of the clients that we have in our firm we manage money for are foundations, high net worth clients, and then a lot of just friends and people who are not high net worth. We manage close to 700 million now with, I think we have around 2,500 clients in 37 states.
Things have gone well in the market for the last decade
they sure
or so,
have,
and particularly the last few years. The Dow's about tripled since 2008. Has that helped a lot of people?
It has. It has helped almost everyone in our country. Most people are involved in one way or the other in the stock market through their 401ks or through their personal investments or IRAs, and the companies they work for, their well-being has increased. So, and that secures their job better. So it's really been a a boon for everyone in our country.
You have spent 50 years wondering what the future is, right? so
Wondering is the right word.
So as you look ahead and you tell people to start thinking about their retirements early and so forth, what advice do you have these days?
Start as early as you can. I don't care if it's $25 a month. Start as early as you can. I'll give you an example. I had a client back when I was in the brokerage business who came to me, and he was a policeman. And he said, I have got to start saving money for my children's education. He was just a rookie policeman. And so he started, I got him, same thing I was doing at the time, putting $50 a month in a mutual fund. Well, he did that. It hurt him. I mean, that was a big amount of money for him. And then about 10 years later, he increased it to $100 a month. His children, he got scholarships. He didn't need to get any of the money for their benefit. He never took any money out. When he died a couple of years ago, he had $1 million.
Wow, yeah.
And that's the power of compounding. So start as early as you can with as small amount as you can possibly do if you have to.
Even if it's a meager, modest amount.
Right, don't be embarrassed about it or anything, just do it.
What has it been like to be in business in Lexington for all of these years?
Oh,
this town has grown and changed, huh?
It's still small as far as I'm concerned, but it's been a wonderful place to work. I've had a lot of opportunity to move other places and in the investment business, and haven't done it. When I started in the business, in your introduction, you said I started at Hilliard's. I really started at a firm called Olmsted Brothers. And it was on the corner of Esplanade and Short Street in a really beautiful building there that's now the parking lot for the bank across from the Lexington Club. And I started there, and they were caught up in the extreme volume of that put a lot of people out of business, like Goodbody, and Olmsted went out of business. So at that point, I went with Hilliard's.
That's when it went, yeah.
And they went out of business because they had too much business.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. And that was before technology. And you go down in the basement where they did in Louisville was their home office. They were the oldest New York firm west of the Alleghenies. You go in the basement, and there were stacks of securities on the desks of these guys with green eye shades.
Well, thank you for this peek back in time and look ahead, because you gave us some great advice as well. We appreciate you coming by.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
I've really enjoyed it. It's been a great opportunity.
Thank you for being here for WKYT's Kentucky Newsmakers. We'll see you bright and early this week on WKYT This Morning. Make it a good week ahead.